Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the Hellboy Artists Collection Richard Corben hardcover from Dark Horse Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. Before getting started, a big thank you to the folks at Dark Horse for sending us a copy of this hardcover. This book is out in the direct market and book market already, so you can find it anywhere. So what we're looking at here is the artist collection featuring the legendary Richard Corben, and of course this piece right here by Richard Corben that has a frame around it. The Hellboy Artist Collection and Richard Corben and the frame all have this gold foil stamp around it. And the book has this cloth here as part of it. We'll focus on it here in a second. Let's look at the spine, the Dark Horse logo, Hellboy Artist Collection, Richard Corben, Mike Mignola, Dark Horse Books. I'm surprised it just says Mignola down here instead of Mignola and Richard Corben, or maybe the colorist, but that's okay. Let's look back here, the complete collection of horror master Richard Corben's artwork in the Hellboy universe and comics and graphic novel stories. This just tells you about what's collected in there. And the retail price with the ISBN, $49.99. Again, it's got this cloth right here. And let me tell you something. If you've got cats, if you've got pets, this is just a magnet for that hair. Much like the library edition hardcovers, which I know people have been wanting me to do a comparison. So the book is as tall as the library editions. This is just volume 4 for an example. However, it is long, not as long, and it does have something very similar to what the cover art book had, and that is it's partially clothed, and then the rest of it is just this like flat finish to it. It doesn't have anything on it. The frame doesn't have the gold foil in the back, and neither does the font. But yes, it does have cloth like right here on the spine, almost like the grip right there, whereas this has it all the way around. And speaking of spine, which I'm sure you're going to put it on your shelf, maybe next to the books, the library editions, this is what it will look like. So the Dark Horse logo is up here now instead of down there. The little skull, the little Mignola skull, is gone. But, I mean, it wasn't going to match perfectly to begin with, but I did want to make people aware this is what it looks like. All right. We are going to be cracking the book open and talking about what's collected in here, showing off this beautiful artwork, and then, of course, where it might have been collected before in the library editions for people that are like, it's too much double dipping, or, well, not enough double dipping for me. But anyway, let's go ahead and crack that open and take a look at it. Alright, let's go ahead and get this open. Here's your end sheets, it's black end sheets. The title page, Hellboy Artist Collection, Richard Corben, and the Crooked Man right here. So most of the pieces through here are by Richard Corben. You have Richard Corben there, stories by Mike Mignola, even though he draws part of the first collection in here, or the first story that's in here. And that is the Mokoma. And art by Richard Corben, of course. Colors by Dave Stewart. Clem Robbins doing the lettering. Then the editors at the time. You have a forward here by Mike Mignola talking about how lucky he was to work with Richard Corben and how Richard Corben, for some reason, just kept coming back before leaving Hellboy and doing his own thing. I love this introduction, and this also tells you, right here, where you're going to find each of the stories. So collected in here is Mokoma 1 and 2, the Being Human one-shot, Hellboy in Mexico one-shot, Hellboy House of the Living Dead original graphic novel, Hellboy The Bride of Hell one-shot, Hellboy double feature of Evil one-shot, Hellboy The Mirror short story, and then Hellboy The Crooked Man 1 through 3. The book has 312 pages and retails for $49.99. See what I mean? You do have some Mike Mignola art in here, that because he was going to do the whole Mokoma story. Now, The other thing I'm going to say is let's talk about what has been previously collected before. Because if you have the library editions, the Hellboy library editions do have some of these stories in there, such as Makoma. That story has been collected in the library edition. So has the Crooked Man story. So some of these may be familiar, as well as the Bride of Hell. Those stories have been collected in the library editions. The rest of this, however, has not been collected, like Hellboy in Mexico, not in library edition format. So that is something to keep in mind as far as double dipping. Okay, so let's talk about each of these stories in here. So we kick it off with, as I mentioned, the Makoma story. And this is all centered around 1993, because if you remember, Hellboy does go through different times, and Hellboy has been invited to the New York City Explorers Club, but it's a different kind of club, and he's looking at a mummy, and this mummy seems to be talking to him, and the mummy takes him on a flashback, maybe a trip to another time where Hellboy has to fight these giant creatures, these giant monsters, and each one of the giants that he defeats turns smaller and smaller. And if you're wondering what Makoma is, it means he without fear. And there's a little bit of twist of where that goes and what happens too. Now, he doesn't just encounter giants, he encounters a demon, because he's like, the demon's like, wait, I'm not a giant, I'm a demon, you're gonna run from me. Each time he defeats these giants, like I said, they get smaller, and he's able to put them in a bag, because he's approached by an old woman at the very beginning of this flashback story, where she's telling him that at the end of this trip, he will come back to her and return the bag to her. And it goes into a wow, a very lucid dream type of story that only Richard Corben can provide. Now, by the end of it, Mignola does wrap up the story again, and "What the hell did you do to my mummy?" is one of my favorite lines in the Hellboy universe. Now, the Crooked Man is, this is a classic. The Crooked Man all takes place in Virginia. So in 1958, again, it's a period piece because we are talking about Hellboy. And this is all about a witch and witchings going around. So this young lady has been found with a witch ball on her, and Hellboy's like, you guys seem to know a lot about this stuff. Why didn't you call a doctor? Then we have the return of this young man. Well, he's not a young man anymore, but he left this town 20 years ago. This is Tom Farrell, who is not surprised at talking to Hellboy, not surprised by the way he looks, so he might have had an encounter with the supernatural. Now, what the villagers have told Hellboy and Tom is that this is the work of Cora Fisher, because the two girls had been fighting, so they are off to go and find Cora Fisher. And on the way to find Cora Fisher, Hellboy's asking Tom, like, why aren't you afraid of me? Aren't you a little bit scared? And he's like, no, because I know what the devil looks like, and he doesn't look like you. So that kind of piques Hellboy's interest. At the cabin, they do find Cora's skin, and he's like, oh, she'll come back. And then he tells Hellboy the story of how he ran into Mr. Whitkins, or what the villagers called the Crooked Man. And that imagery, oh man, it is so creepy. It's so good. And that's who the devil is. So this is a journey about trying to get rid of this witchcraft, trying to find his father, teaming up with Cora, because there's a little bit of a twist as to who's really behind all of this, and this journey between Tom, Cora, and Hellboy, and then a couple of other characters that do join too. But that's the other big story that's in here. And it's hard to choose which one is my favorite out of all of these. Crooked Man is the longest, but I've read it so many times. And then you have The Bride of Hell right here. This takes place in 1985. It's about this American tourist, I think, what is her name? Cipriano, I think. She ends up disappearing when in France. There's a whole cult, and there's a bunch of twists and turns in that particular story. I don't know, man. I really like this one right here. This is Hellboy in Mexico. This is just Hellboy and Abe Sapien waiting on the BPRD to come pick them up after a mission. They're in Mexico in 1982. and they're just trying to get out of the sun right now, and they end up walking into this little place right here that has some kind of shelter, where they find a statue of Mother Mary right there, and a bunch of luchador pictures, and there's one picture of Hellboy with some luchadores. So of course Abe is like, Hellboy? What the hell is this? So he tells them the flashback story about how him and some luchador brothers got together in Mexico. I think there's actually a follow-up to this story to deal with the outbreak of supernatural activity that's happening. So it's an awesome story. I really like it. It's really short. It's really sweet. This is the double feature of Evil that's also collected in here. And this is all taking place in like a old rundown movie theater. And it's Hellboy fighting a bunch of zombies. If you're a fan of the Hellboy universe and the BPRD, there are a lot of Easter eggs here. There's a lot of characters that show up through here. This is the story of being human, and this is all about a witch and her zombie servant that host a party for a family of corpses. And now Hellboy and Roger turn up at this party, and you can see how they end up dealing with this particular family. House of the Living Dead. This is another one that's short too. So like the longer stories are told at the very beginning. They're kept at the very beginning, and the shorter stories are towards the back. So this is kind of a follow-up to the Hellboy in Mexico, and it tells the story about what happened to one of the luchador comrades that had to fight a vampire, and it's pretty much Hellboy just hanging around Mexico and waiting for his invitation to this ultimate wrestling match where he has to fight a popular monster. The creepiest story in here, I think, is The Mirror. And The Mirror is a really short story, and the story itself isn't creepy, but I think Richard Corben just goes out with a bang in this one. There is one image, and I don't want to spoil it because it's at the very end, that just stuck with me. I think this originally came out in a free comic book day, and I thought he did such a phenomenal job because I'm a big fan of creepy imagery. That's part of why I love Hellboy. That and the goofiness to it, so it doesn't take itself too seriously. I love it. Now, all the way in the back, you do get a bio on Richard Corben, and you get the other books that are available from Richard Corben by Dark Horse Comics, and of course the Hellboy libraries. Well, I don't want to just say library editions because that's kind of a thing. They do have a library edition, but they're Hellboy in different formats. Trade paperbacks, the big monster size book, and the library editions back here. Now, let's talk about the binding. So it does have sewn binding, and it has 312 pages. The book lays over really nice. It's printed in this thick, glossy paper stock. I mean, really thick, glossy paper stock. And no ribbon, though. No bookmark ribbon or anything like that. The only thing that it's really missing are, like, the variant covers that Richard Corben didn't do. Like, Mike Mignola's covers aren't included in here. It is practically just a Richard Corben collection outside of the intro and the outro to the Makoma story. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this artist collection. Let me know in the comments down below what other artist collection you want to see, not just from Hellboy, but any of the Dark Horse series that they have put out. But this was a wonderful edition. I'm hoping one day these side stories will be collected in a big format, kind of like the monster-sized Hellboy. Love that book. But if you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.